Welcome to We're Gonna Run It with Joe Lisi and Terry Bowden.
You're listening to We're Gonna Run It.
What's your game plan?
Can they run, but will they run? If you want to run the ball, you got to give it to a guy that's a running back.
Gutless. We're gonna run it.
We're gonna play blue collar. Enjoy it. I said it. Have a little heart and have some stones.
We're gonna run it.
If you want to throw an RPO, you got to run first, pass second. That's why it's not called a PRO. It's an RPO. You got to start with a running game that puts people on their heel.
Take a look at my algo. His algo is used with all data from last year. You're so smart, you're stupid.
We're gonna run it.
And the people that believe that talking head are even stupider than what I thought. I said it.
If you want to run the ball, you got to give it to a guy that's a running back.
You got no shot to get back into the series. No shot. I said it. What's your game plan?
We're gonna run it.
Yes, we are going to run it straight into week number 11 of the college football season. Joe Lisi and Coach Terry Bowden breaking down all the top 25 matchups, Coach. Some breaking news, news out of Memphis and Arkansas. Depending upon how this game plays out tomorrow night, Tulane and Memphis, Ryan Silverfield most likely will ink a 5-year deal to make him the new head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks. We saw Arkansas go the likes a few years ago, maybe about 6 or 7 with the likes of Brett Bielema and Chad Morris. Now they're going to Ryan Silverfield, who's done a fantastic job in Memphis. He's led this team to 2 back-to-back 10-win seasons. They stepped up, knocked off teams like Iowa State in a bowl type of matchup. So very battle-tested coach, physical blue-collar teams for the Memphis Tigers. Good or bad fit potentially for the Arkansas Razorbacks moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, people in Arkansas have had a good look at the coach at Memphis. That's not too far away. They know all about him. He's a coach that was going to go somewhere, and I think they've got an up-and-coming coach there, a guy that's won at Memphis, and I think they've seen enough. And I think, he's recruited that area from the area, not too far away. So it wouldn't shock me if he gets a job. I always worry when I see some kind of release like this that didn't come from the school or didn't come from somebody else until I see it officially, because that's usually the schools really are reluctant to let news like this get out before they get it out. But he would be a good candidate for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you talk about Arkansas not up there with some of the likes of Auburn and LSU and Florida, but still a very good job. And Sam Pittman did a pretty good job taking over when he was the offensive line coach at Georgia. He goes to Arkansas. A lot of people didn't like that fit early on, but he stepped up. He covered numbers as an underdog. His teams were very competitive, got the Razorbacks to bowl matchups against Kansas. He won that game just a few seasons ago, faced off against Texas Tech last year. At certain spots, Sam Pittman and Arkansas were live dogs, right? They challenged the likes of Alabama a couple of years as a 20.5-point underdog. Just never could find the consistency and the electricity to get to potentially a 9 or a 10-win football season in Fayetteville.
Well, I mean, they like Sam Pittman. They wanted him to win. They wanted him to stay. Just couldn't win enough games. And I think most everywhere you see these coaches getting let go mid-season, it basically boils down to expectations. The people that make the decisions at Arkansas felt he wasn't winning enough games, and it wasn't something on the outside because he kind of was a good fit at Arkansas. They like him, and now it's a matter of getting the right guy. Now, I will say this. In the age of NIL and portal transfer, there is quite a bit of wealth in 3 or 4 families in Arkansas. If they want to be as good as anybody else in the conference, they've got the money in Arkansas to do it. In the old days, if you didn't have the players within the state to fill your roster, it was a little bit of a difficult time. But you don't have to go back. Well, you do have to go back a little bit to Frank Broyles and some of the great coaches from Arkansas when they had so many great teams and won national championship. But again, right coach, right commitment by the school. No reason Arkansas can't be back to some of its old glory.
And I will say this, talent here now, again, that talent will move on, but Taylon Green if he was on any team, Alabama, if he was on Ohio State, he'd be one of the most electric quarterbacks in all of the nation, putting up dual threat type of numbers. Omega Blake is another one that transferred in from Charlotte. Mike Washington that transferred in from New Mexico State. Petrino did a fantastic job in getting talent there, and the issues weren't on the offensive side of the ball. Unfortunately, over the past couple of seasons, it was the defense that let them down. They did have quarterback a couple of years ago, KJ Jefferson, one of the more physical, athletic quarterbacks in the SEC. So, again, talent has gone to Arkansas offensively. We'll see what they could get defensively next year to make them competitive. Some other news coming out with Brent Key. They asked him about potential job openings, at Georgia Tech and obviously at other universities. He came out and said, and he went to Georgia Tech, said, cut me open and see the colors that I bleed, right? So I think he sort of tempered down those expectations that he could potentially move on to the likes of Penn State or some of the others. That's good to hear if you're a Georgia Tech backer, because this team still enters this weekend, Coach, as potential front runner to win an ACC championship.
That's right. They've got to keep those players' heads in the game, and that's what a coach has to say. Now, when the season's over, a lot of things change, but right now that's where he wants to be the rest of his life. When the season's over, things may change. I don't care. I've seen it too many times, but I've said if you want to get all the rumors stopped, just let them know you love it where you are. This is where you plan to stay, and then let it go from there, because that's what most people say when they do leave a couple of years later. But, he is a Georgia Tech guy. He loves what's going on there. What I'm saying is it's a business, and he has just made it clear that he wants to be there as long as Georgia Tech wants him. He wants to be there.
Yeah, man. And again, we will see exactly how that plays out for Georgia Tech. A team is 8-1. They did come off a disappointing loss last week in Raleigh. They lost it 48-36, but they do have Georgia down the stretch as well. That could be an elimination game for a college football playoff berth in just a few weeks. So the week after Thanksgiving, Georgia Tech and Georgia will square off. The game is in Atlanta this year. We saw this game go down to 8 overtimes, and Georgia stole it 48-46. So that could be an elimination game. Both teams have one loss. We'll see exactly how that plays out. Georgia does get back in the saddle this week, Coach. They square off against Mississippi State. This is a team that they have dominated in recent years. They have won 5 straight. When you look at it, they've won those games by an average margin of victory, Coach, of 17 points per game. The line opened up at 7.5. We're seeing 8.5s creep into the market. Thoughts about Georgia and Miss State? Miss State coming off their first win in conference, knocking off Arkansas last week.
Well, Georgia's going to probably do what Georgia's done all year. They're going to start slow. They're going to continue to run the football, try to stay with their plan. They're going to fall behind. They're going to make good adjustments at halftime, and they're eventually going to come out, going to end fast, end strong, and win a close football game. Again, that's not the way they necessarily want to do it, but they're going to stick with their formula, which is stay with the running game, try to play good defense, don't turn the ball over, and be strong at the end. Mississippi State, though, is a team that's 5-5. They're 5 wins. I think it's 5-5. Or 5-4, but they're 1 game away from a bowl victory. They were 0-8 in the conference last year. Their 2 overtime losses, they would win 2 more games already. I think Mississippi State can really give them a run for their money. Kind of looked like the game they played last week at Georgia. They fall behind or it's close and they pull away at the end. But Mississippi State in a very tough place to play in Stark Vegas and those Cowbells. It'll be a good match for Georgia, but they'll pull up a close one.
Now, I will say last year, 41-31, Miss State did cover. That was sort of a letdown spot for Georgia. So this team, again, I think when you look at the matchup, 7.5-point underdogs to Texas. Miss State covers by a half. 7.5-point dogs to Tennessee. Miss State covers by a half. They're 8-1 against the number this year, a covering machine, and now playing a little bit with house money going up against the Bulldogs because they got the monkey off their back. They went toe-to-toe with Arkansas. Arkansas had the lead by 4 points. Fourth quarter, Blake Shapen and the crew steal it, and they win that matchup by 3 points on the road. Now they come back home. Here's the concern that I have. If
Right.
you watch the second half, and Arkansas's defense, we just spoke about it, not good in any capacity. Right. They give up a chunk of yards. This Georgia defense, maybe it's not the same that we've seen in recent years under Kirby Smart, but they're still allowing only 90 rushing yards per game, and they still have an elite offense led by Gunnar Stockton. In order for Miss State to win this game, still going to have to potentially score 30 points in this ball game, Coach.
Yeah, well, they average, 34 points a game, or 30, right around 34 points a game, or 31 points a game. They're scoring pretty good football team, but this is a better Georgia defense. I agree with you. They're not as good as they have been in their championship years, but this is no defense to feel sorry about at Georgia. They play good football, and they will be tough to score on. I just think Mississippi State has shown they can play with the best teams in the conference, and they will keep this thing close. I like Mississippi and the points, although I think Georgia sneaks out of here with another victory.
I'm gonna go the other way. I do like Georgia laying the 8.5. I want to see this rushing attack take over. I think that's the one thing when I watched the Texas game, fourth quarter, Texas did dominate. Can that continue now with Georgia? We'll see. They got Bowens. They got Nate Frazier involved with the rushing attack. Georgia only allowing 3 yards per carry and only 19 points per game. I just think it's a bad spot for Miss State. We'll see how it plays out. Early kick, too, Coach, in Start Vegas, 12 noon. You like Miss State. I'm going with Georgia in that battle. We'll see exactly how it plays out. Let's talk about the other matchup in the SEC. Takes place at 3:30 Eastern in Columbia. We got Texas A&M laying 6.5 against Missouri. Zollers will get the start for the Tigers. He's the quarterback that came in when Bo Perbula went down. This A&M offense is playing lights out, but we know about how good the defense is. I think this is a tough matchup, but I want to get your thoughts. Can A&M dominate this game? They've won 2 straight. They dominated this matchup last year in College Station by double digits.
I don't know that I'd use the word dominate. I'm not sure you're going to dominate Missouri. They're a solid football team, both sides of the football. If Bo Perbula had not gotten hurt out for the season, and the true freshman, Matt Zollers, has been the starting quarterback, this will be his first start of the season. Not a good team to Texas A&M to start your first game. They lead the nation in sacks with 32, and you're going to probably have to outscore them. And they're going to come after a young quarterback. But if they can rely on Ahmad Hardy, the running back, one of the best in the country, playing for Missouri from old ULM where I coached a few years ago, they'll have their chance to win. But the biggest problem I see, the reason I would give this one to Texas A&M at 6.5 or 7 or whatever. What is it, 7 right now? Or is it?
It's 6.5 across multiple books here. Let me just double check that. I'll give you the live updated odds for A&M. They were 7.5 point favorites. Right now, 6.5 in New Jersey.
Well, I'm just saying is I believe because they've gone to a third quarterback. Remember, Sam Horn was started the first game. Now they were going to rotate him and Prabula. He got hurt for the year. He was out. Now it's Prabula, and he does a great job, the transfer from Penn State. And now you got your third guy coming in, and I've always said there's going to be a limited amount of offense that he may be able to run. He is a true freshman. Most times when you have a true freshman, it limits what you can do offensively. You got to do what he can do, what he knows. He hasn't had years of training. And so I'm just saying for 6.5, 7 points, I'm going to have to stay with A&M. I think they're going to win the game, but I like A&M to cover in this one because you've got a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, we'll see exactly how it plays out. I will say when we're looking at this matchup, we know how dominant Texas A&M is on the defensive side of the ball. Third down defense, one of the tops with Ohio State, holding opposing offenses to only 22% of third down opportunities. Coach, last 6 games, they've held opposing offenses to 8 of 55 attempts. That's
unbelievable.
15%. So you have to stay in manageable third downs. Now, if you're Eli Drinkwitz and you're Missouri right now, you're playing a little bit with house money. I think 4th and 2, 4th and 3, you roll the dice. I really think that if they're in positive field position with the freshman quarterback, this is an opportunity to just go all out just because you're playing at home. If they were on the road, I'd say, I would dial it back a bit. But the fact that they're at home in Columbia, I'm going to take the 6.5. Don't be shocked. I might call for the upset,
Uh-huh.
Missouri, because this Missouri front seven, coach, not given enough love. They're holding opposing offenses right in the area of about 3.3 yards per carry, very dominant in run support. I think they could force Marcel Reed into potentially long third downs. They were able to do that with Pavia and Vanderbilt. I think this is a game they could potentially steal defensively against the Aggies.
Well, they better play good defense because the Aggies have scored over 40 points in 5 of their football games. So the Aggies have shown the ability to outscore people if that's what they have to do, or play a tight ball game on defense if that's what they need to do. And again, I wouldn't bet against Missouri at home. I just do believe the rookie quarterback will be worth about a touchdown less than what they expect. You mentioned something, going for it on fourth team. I'm all for it. Stay on the field. Your best defense against Texas A&M may be your offense, because I don't care how good you are on defense at Missouri, and they're very good. Texas A&M can play with anybody offensively, no matter what defense you got.
Absolutely. We'll see how that game plays out. 3:30 kick. It's on ABC. 6.5-point favorites in favor of the Aggies. Let's talk about the night game in Baton Rouge. Coach, we know that you look at Frank Wilson and this LSU staff, they had said that they're going to get back to blue-collar physicality that LSU has been known for offensively and defensively. They have come out and said Michael Van Buren, the backup transfer from Miss State, will see some limited opportunities potentially in red zone or RPO type of sets. That's some pressure on Nussmeier. That's all well and good. The question I have and the problem that I have is this defense in a rivalry game going to travel? We saw this line open up at 12.5. We see now 9.5s in the market. This was a game Alabama dominated last year. Can LSU at least keep it close in Tuscaloosa? Alabama's only lost one game in Bryant-Denny dating back to 2020. They have been a dominant home team. Can they get to cover LSU on Saturday night?
Yeah, and I've been watching these teams as they fired their coach in the middle of the season, how the teams respond. Florida, Virginia Tech, Arkansas, and on down the line, the teams seem to respond and play well. They circle the wagons, they bow up, back to the wall. Everybody pulls together, and you see them. If they don't win, I've seen a lot of close football games when you thought they would be in disarray. And I kind of feel like we're dealing with that with LSU and Auburn, I will say, where we've got this situation. LSU has played good defense, and I think that's going to keep them in the ballgame. And I don't think Alabama will lose this game, but I think LSU will play their butts off in the best game, and their players and their coaches rally together, and they'll stay close. Alabama, again, is not running the ball like the old Alabama championship teams, but they can throw and catch the football and put yardage on that way. So if LSU can run the ball and not demand and not make Nussmeier have a great day. He's only thrown for about 1,800 yards. He had over 4,000 last year in the season, so he's not having the kind of year they expect. But a lot of that has to do with the running tack. So if LSU can put together some type of running tack and just the morale can keep them close, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt, and like some of these other teams, I think of Florida against Georgia last week, where they come out and play very, very well and stay close enough so they don't get blown out.
Well, the key will be if LSU covers this, can they exploit that front seven of Alabama, similar to the way Lenora Sellers did a few weeks ago? We saw Lenora Sellers be mobile. Can they utilize Van Buren because he's more of an athletic quarterback, where Nussmeier is just prototypical drop back? And can LSU run the football for more than potentially 100 yards in this matchup? We talk about Alabama in the game that they struggled with Florida State. Florida State rushed for 240 in that matchup, was able to wear down that front seven and keep Ty Simpson on the sidelines. Do we feel like the offensive line is intact with LSU where they can run the football effectively? I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to deviate. Typically, I'm always backing the Tigers. I don't have a lot of confidence in them, Coach. I want to believe it, but I think now with Ty Simpson, if he gets hot, This could be a long day. Maybe the over is the best way to play it because we'll blow through. If Alabama scores, they're going to score a lot in this matchup, and I think maybe we can attack it that way. But I do like Alabama potentially to cover this line. I'm not sure what to get out of the bye week. And I saw Florida step up, but this team had bigger expectations than the Gators. And here we are in week number 11, we're a 9.5-point dog when in the offseason, this line was in the area of about 2 to 3 points in favor of Alabama. So we'll see how this game plays out. You like the Tigers with the points. I'm taking Alabama.
Let me say this about Alabama, though, for those of you listeners who want to follow Alabama down the road, they've got to run better. If they're going to get far in the playoffs, if they make the playoffs, they've got to continue to get better. They average about 118 yards running the football. When they win championships, it's Alabama. It's been that big back, that outstanding tailback. So they need to make sure as they go forth. I'm not sure it's going to make a difference in this game, but down the road, if you're going to follow them and going to pull for you, we're going to have to see more out of that running game out of Alabama.
Yeah, and I said it. It's their worst rushing output since prior to 2016. So you're dating back, and it could be even further than that statistically. So this is not the same rushing attack. They're well under 4 yards per carry as well. So the interior lines for Alabama, not as dominant, and that's why teams like South Carolina and even Vanderbilt were able to push them to the limit in those matchups. We'll see how it plays out. It's a 7:30 kick in Tuscaloosa. Let's take a look at Auburn. You and I both said if DJ Durkin wins out the rest of the way, potentially he could be the new coach on the Plains. That defense is as good as anybody in the country. You want to talk about Ohio State? I'll put them up that front seven up against anybody. It is very difficult to run on the front seven of Auburn. They now are on the road in Nashville. This line is 6.5, 7 in favor of the Commodores. Vanderbilt went toe-to-toe with Texas. They lose it by 3. Depending upon when you got that line, you either won or lost with the Commodores. I like Auburn to respond. They only got 3 points last week. I think Durkin will have them up. I think they can run the football. I think they look to muscle and push around Vandy. They get this victory on the road.
I don't get the victory for Auburn on this one. I think that I think they'll rally. I think they'll play well. We're only talking about a one touchdown that Vandy needs to beat them. And Vandy did not play an entire bad game against Texas. They got behind early, and then they played better than Texas the entire second half. And I think they've got their backs to the wall. Their Dauberts are up. And Pavia, I mean, he played so well in that game after he got to the second half where he wasn't getting raced around the field and sacked and all the problems that he was having. But when I look at Vandy at home and how good this season has gone, if they lose to Auburn, it may just go back to being a good season, not a great season. And they're still on the verge of having a great season. And again, I give a lot of that to Diego Pavia. I think he'll respond. The team will rally around him. And I just don't think it's a lot to say Vanderbilt's going to win by 7. That's what I believe in Nashville will happen. Going back to your thing about DJ Durkin auditioning for the job, a lot of defensive coordinators who are given head coaching jobs. I think about Bob Stoops. I think about Brent Venables. If they could go find them a good offensive coordinator, they are excellent choices to be a head coach because you win championships with defense. And quite often, these score-a-minute offensive coordinators don't make good head coaches because they forget how to play defense.
I agree 100%. And we heard some rumors coming out of Southern California that potentially Lincoln Riley could be on the move.
Yeah.
He's done less more than any other coach in college football. So we'll see exactly how it plays out. I will say this, when we talk about the progression of Vanderbilt, right? When we talk about when Vanderbilt succeeds, and I brought this up in the pregame last Saturday.
Right.
If they can run the football and they can pound it for over 200, they were undefeated, right? They entering that game last week against Texas. Every time they rushed for over 200, they were 5-0 in the regular season. They won those games by an average margin of victory, coach, of around 28.4 points per game. What happens when they go up against Texas last week? We talk about rushing 58 yards. And what happened? They lose the game, right? So that is going to be the matchup for me when I say, okay, is Vanderbilt going to win by a touchdown? Does their game plan match up? If Auburn brings that defense, and we know Durkin's gotten them up, they're going to have to bring their lunch pail. That's why I like the 6.5 with Auburn, because again, you look at the games, just go through it. Charleston Southern, 201, they win it 45-3. 262 against Vatech, 44-20. 286 against Georgia State, they win it 70-21. 222 against Utah State, 55-35. 239 against LSU, they win it 31-24. So that is the key. When they have that misdirection and they're running the football with Pavia and those running backs, they succeed. I think Auburn has the advantage.
Let me just say this. I mean, unlike any other game they had this year, they were down 24-10 at half. They were catching up the entire football game. When you got to catch up, sometimes you abandon your game plan. You got to throw the ball. They threw for 390, I believe, best throwing day for Pavia. That's not what they want to do. And they need to run. But if you want to fight the other side or argue the other side, they got so far behind. There was only one way to catch up, and that's throwing the football.
Let me ask you before we move on to the ACC.
Right.
Florida, did that loss give any – we always talk about the tale of two teams, right? And we have Florida that came out with Bobby Gonzalez. You could make the argument the kid caught the ball, didn't catch the ball, depending upon the angle. They had Georgia on the ropes and lost it. They now go on the road to Kentucky, and Kentucky wins their first game in conference, coach, and shuts out Auburn. So where do we give the Joe Mo? Where is the momentum just on paper in this game? Is it Kentucky or is it Florida, knowing that they almost knocked off Georgia?
You know, and that's the $1 million question. One, I tend to lean toward Kentucky. Florida, I think you lose the game, you have a chance to rally, and all of a sudden it doesn't happen. And then there's something else that's happening right now. Kids are getting contacted by other schools. The portal comes open, or the NIL money gets thrown out there. Everybody knows what a great defense Florida has. And I'm just going to tell you, there's a lot of things start to go on. So the further they get to the end of the season or beyond that coach firing, I think it's more difficult to hold the team together because there's so much contact being made. And I'm not saying a particular school is doing it illegally. There are just ways to get around it. You grab the coach in high school. You find ways to get to people that can get to people that can get to his people. You know, so I would say this: I don't think that momentum and that circle the wagon attitude that Florida had might not stay with them the entire season because of the further they get from that coaching change.
Now, we knew for years in the SEC, Florida had owned Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
They had the streak. It was it wasn't broken, I don't believe, until, let me just make sure, 2018, where Kentucky won 27-16 in Gainesville. But you just go back to recent, series matchups, and it's been all Kentucky, coach. Kentucky in 2021 wins it 20-13. They win it in 2022 by 10 points, 26-16. 2023, they dominate 33-14 with Ricky Pearsall and sweet baby Ray Davis was running all over that front seven. Ricky Pearsall came on in the fourth quarter, was too little, too late. Florida did get the victory last year, 48-20. So they're 3.5-point favorites. My heart says lay it with Florida, but this is a game I can't bet, coach. I can't bet it, but just because I don't know what to get out of Florida.
No.
If you're telling me this is week 5, I'd say there's no doubt the Gators win. But you're right. Kids could be checked out before they even step out onto the field on Saturday night.
It's a whole nother dimension we have to think about. Now, I'm going with. I think when I say Florida won't play great, I do think they'll win and they'll cover in this game, and they'll cover in this game against Kentucky. I just think they begin to sizzle out as the season goes along. And be honest with you, Kentucky players are getting close to the same boat. They're 3-5. Things haven't gone their way. They hear the gossip. the head coach may be gone. People talking about they need to go ahead and move on. He's been there long enough. And so it really is a situation where which team, which group can hold their team together the best. I just think overall talent-wise, Florida's got that edge, especially on defense. And I'm not sure I'd want to bet this one either, but I think they're going to have a chance to cover the points.
Yeah, it looks like it's too good to be true, doesn't it?
Oh,
It really
yeah,
does. 3.5. It's 4 points, right? And all of a sudden you turn it on and Kentucky's up by 15, 20 points. And you're like, why did I back a team that was half checked out?
Right.
So we'll see exactly what transpires. Game 7:30 under the lights in Lexington. Let's take a look at the battle in South Beach. This was a game last year that Miami walks into Syracuse. All they had to do was win, baby. Fran Brown and the Orange smack around Mario Cristobal. They now, Coach, are laying 28.5. We talked about it. I told you, same old Miami, right? When it looks good, it's almost too good to be true, right? It looks like a champion, plays like a champion for 5 weeks, and then all of a sudden you go play Louisville on a Friday night and play SMU at 12 noon, and you're all of a sudden have 2 losses. Can Miami cover a 28.5 point spread against Syracuse that has no answer offensively with Filardi?
You know what? I mean, I just have no confidence in Miami. They should cover. I mean, Syracuse really doesn't have a quarterback answer. I was saying today, I was talking to you about that. Look what their head coach has done. He's fired the pass game coordinator. He's taken the offensive line coach and made him the quarterback coach. He took the quarterback coach and made him the line coach. And he's got a quarterback that was 4 for 18 last week, a walk-on true freshman, that he has no answer to his offense. So how he scores, I don't know. I know he can do a great job because I watched what he did last year and this year until he lost his quarterback. But I just don't know that I can trust Miami to go out there and do what they can do, which is win by 29, 30 points. Just because I've lost my confidence in Miami, they're going to win. The whole question is, can they score by 4.5 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns and a field goal? I don't think they will. I'm gonna bet Syracuse hangs as close as they can, and I guarantee it. They'll do everything they can to slow this thing down. To try to keep the Skagum game from getting over as fast as they can.
Yeah, they're averaging 3 yards per carry.
Yeah.
About 118 yards a game. I mean, they're absolutely pathetic running the football. And again, what does that mean? Well, when you're going up against a dominant front seven, if you can't run the football effectively, you're in long third down situations. And there you go with Filardi. I mean, 4 of 18, the kid's in college. We've seen high school kids complete more passes. And again, I get it was his first start, but still, that was North Carolina. This is one of the better defenses in all of the SEC. They're averaging 3.3 yards per carry and 112 rushing yards a game. I mean, that's not going to get it done. I guess the bigger question is, can you get over 46.5? If Miami's dialed in, I think they could score 46 on their own.
Well, and they'll cover, and they'll cover too. That's the thing. I think the whole question is they're going to win a football game. Will they cover? Will it be an over? And that's going to be Miami locked in, saying, you know what, we're going to take it out on somebody. We're pissed off. We're going to take this out on somebody, and the somebody is going to be a crippled a Syracuse team. And I don't know. I just don't have the confidence that Miami will line up and do what they can do. I've seen them every time I jump on them, they let me down.
Absolutely. Again, we'll see exactly how that plays out. If anything, I'm taking the over in the matchup. I mean, I can't lay it with Miami, Coach. Can't do it in that ball game. Let's take a look at some other ACC matchups. You and I had talked about the game in Charlottesville. It's a late night kick or a 7 o'clock kick. Virginia laying 6.5 to Wake Forest. Coach, this Wake Forest team got blown out. It's back-to-back road games for the Demon Deacons. They couldn't stop Thomas Castellanos in Florida State. Could they stop Chandler Morris? My heart tells me that they could cover the 6.5 line. What about you?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, the UVA has just had a special season. They're about to have one for the ages at Virginia. They know they can see the finish line right now. They know what's at stake for them. and they can't blow it by Wake Forest. And Wake Forest has played good. Their new head coach clearly is doing a better job. Now, they got blown out last week, and I wouldn't show that video to your team very much at Virginia. I'd show the week before that when they beat SMU 13-12. But you know what? I still say it's Virginia. They're at home. They're about to have the best season they've ever had. They're already talking about one of the best. They're already there, but they're about to have a chance, and they've got to win the conference. Making the playoffs. If they lose a game here or there, they're not going to make the college football playoffs. I think they've got to go out there and make sure they don't get 2 losses even with them, because I think they've got to. So I think they know it's on the stake. More importantly, as Tony Elliott, their head coach, says, we've got the right mindset. Our kids just believe they're going to win. And I think in the bottom line, Virginia believes in themselves a little bit more than Wake Forest. And I like the football team. I like the way they run the football. I love the way their quarterback plays. And I think they are going to have, at least for another week, that special season, because then they also have to play Duke next week after this one. So they've still got some football to be played.
Now, Duke is the front runner, I believe, at a plus 350 price to win the ACC. What's interesting is Virginia's sole loss came week 2 to NC State, but it didn't count as a conference loss.
Right.
It was a non-conference game, so Virginia sits at 5-0 in the conference, 8-1 overall, and winners of 7 straight. We saw this Wake Forest team step up against the likes of SMU. I'm going to take a shot with the 6.5 points and Wake Forest. I think they could surprise. Love the job that Jake Dickert has done in year number 1 with the Demon Deacons. Another matchup in the conference, and you and I talked about it earlier, was Louisville and Cal. 20.5, that seems... Now, Cal only rushed for 8 yards last week against Virginia, Coach. But they're going to need a better effort against Louisville. Miller Moss and this offense are battle-tested. They're another team, 7-1 overall.
Yeah.
Their only loss came to Virginia in overtime. They're 4-1 in the conference. I don't know if they could beat Cal by 20.5. I'm inclined to take Cal with the points on the road. I know Wilcox is not that great of a road coach, but you want to give me 3 touchdowns, I'll take a shot with the Cal Bears.
I'm going to stay with Louisville. I just think they're at home again. They got to have this. The ACC. You better not mess around with 2 losses, because you got a good chance. If you don't win your conference, you may be sitting home when it comes to college football playoffs or playing in one of the other bowl games. I think Louisville. You got to remember that what they average 78 yards a game is what Cal averages, whereas Louisville does a great job. Their defense, and they've had 12 picks. They're one of the 7th highest teams in the country in interceptions, and the quarterback for Cal has thrown 9 picks himself, and so it'd be a great chance for them. They can't run; they've got to throw it. Louisville's got one of the best secondaries for intercepting the ball in the country. I'm just saying, I think Louisville at home, everything's on the line for Louisville right now at this point in time, and it's one they've got to have. They've still got Clemson, they've still got SMU, and so they've got to not be down. They can't afford to stumble anywhere on this schedule.
We'll see exactly how it plays out for Cal. They have, I believe, let me just double check that, 5 wins in the regular season, and just want to make sure 5-4 fighting for a bowl contention, which would be good for Justin Wilcox and their quarterback Sagapolatelli. In year number 1, 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Again, they did play well on the road in certain spots. They did knock off Boston College. I know Boston College is terrible this year, sitting at 1-7 overall, and we saw O'Brien go after the fan base and the media for the school. That was a tough scene, but they still played well. They were competitive. They didn't win against Virginia Tech or cover, but they still put up some points. So I think they could be live on Saturday in Louisville.
Let me say this too. And Isaac Brown, who plays for Louisville, averages 8.6 yards a carry. He's out for this football game. I think maybe he's the best I've seen this year, and he's out. And that is a tough one for Louisville to replace. You don't replace an Isaac Brown, but if you're a Cal fan or you're pulling for Cal or you like the points with Cal, another reason why you might want to stick with them.
Yeah, we'll see. Bell is still there. He didn't hit pay dirt. Isaac Brown did score on the first drive for the Cardinals en route to that victory and cover over Virginia Tech. We talk about Clemson and Florida State. This is intriguing. 29-13 last year. Clemson got the road cover in Tallahassee. Tale of two teams. For Florida State, 500. First ACC win. They at least stopped the bleeding. Getting back to a victory within conference, more pressure on Dabo than there is Norvell at this juncture. Coach, 2-4, all 4 losses in the conference, all 4 losses at home in Death Valley, which is unimaginable. They have more home losses this year than they did from 2015 to the start of 2024, where they only had 3. Can they get one here against Florida State? All they have to do is win by a field goal.
Yeah, I've got Florida State. You know what? I think the season's lost as far as what the expectations are at Clemson. Now, I'm not saying they can't claw back and get enough wins to get 6 wins, and maybe get to a bowl. He hasn't been out of a bowl for a lot of years, but I just don't think. And the home field advantage, that magic's gone. That's not this team. The problem with Clemson, they had a great offensive performance, maybe their best of the year last week against Duke, but they stunk it up on defense. And the thing that they gave up was big play after big play after big play. And I think what Florida State's going to do is run that football. They've got the 3rd highest total offense in the country, and they can run it. But when they run it, they set you up for the deep ball. FSU leads the nation, 18 plays over 40 yards. And so what you can see them, and Clemson gave up big play after big play last week against Duke. I mean, wide open deep balls. And so what I can just visualize is Florida State doing their running game, east and west, quarterback up the middle, and then pull your safeties up and hit you downtown, throwing the football with big plays. And so I'm going to go with FSU. I think Clemson is they may salvage another win or two, but they can't. There's not much you can salvage this year. Everything is pretty much down the drain as far as being a top 4 team at the start of the season.
I agree. And the one, I guess, bright spot for Florida State, they hold Wake Forest to 85 rushing yards in the game, only 2.1 yards per carry. They contained the mobile quarterback in Robbie Ashford. He did finish with 93 yards and an interception. Their quarterback, Castellanos, throws for 271. He completed 12 of 16 passes for 271 last week, added another touchdown on the ground, Coach. You get that type of effort against Clemson, they're going to move the football. And again, I think that's the one thing, too, is when you think of Clemson, forget the home field. That's no longer there, to your point. But the defense is not even good in run support. That used to be the staple of Clemson, is that superior 3rd down defense. Teams were very hard and were up against it to run the football. Not the case. I believe I got to look at the stats, but if I'm not mistaken, Duke pounds the rock for $194 on that front 7 last week, and Mensa added another 250 plus through the air. I mean, you get that type of effort, you're going to get blown out. So we'll see exactly. I am curious. My heart says Clemson should win this game, but when I think about mindset and I think about just Florida State has an opportunity to get to a bowl. And I just think from a motivational standpoint, you have potentially one checked out team and a team that, hey, 5-4 looks a lot better than it did a couple weeks ago. And Norvell's saying, hey, if we win out and beat Florida, I'm going to be there in 2026.
Well, what the deal is with FSU, and I said before the season began, when we were going over and under in numbers of wins this year, I said, fellas, FSU, it's a 2-year deal. It's going to take 2 years to come back from that season last year. If they get half of it this year, they'll get back in the hunt for the conference and national playoff contention next year. Well, after the Alabama win, we kind of jumped the gun. Right now, we're right back where we thought they'd be. They're halfway there, but they're not all the way. But at least they're halfway there. Clemson, I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of problems at Clemson that Dabo's going to have to find. He's been trying to find a way to fix it the last 3 or 4 years. When I was there, Tony Elliott was the offensive coordinator, tied with Jeff the other offensive
Scott.
coordinator.
Jeff
Jeff
Scott.
Scott. Jeff Scott. But Tony Elton was the running back coach, play caller, gone. He's now having the best year ever at Virginia. Brent Venables was the defensive coordinator, tearing it up. He's gone. One of the best defenses in the country at Oklahoma, I think. And what you've seen is Dabo trying to get that staff aligned just right to get the right people, and he seems to have not gotten the moves just right. They don't run the ball, but they throw it, or they defensively they give up the deep ball. So I think they've still got things like that to do, and you can't solve that with a good week of practice.
Yeah,
You've got to probably look at your overall program and make some key decisions.
So it was 2 weeks ago they gave up 5 yards per carry in the loss to SMU. They did contain Duke in the rushing attack. They held them to 3 yards per carry. But again, it was Mensa that did attack them over the top. And again, they played from behind in much of that game. You put it on, Clemson was up by 7 points. You blink, and then all of a sudden Duke had the lead. And every time Clemson was playing from behind, not their MO, they have not been able to dictate the tempo even at home, and that's a cause of concern. It is a mindset, right? You can't go in thinking you're defeated. And again, it could be a game where you say, I'm not going to, like I said, I do like Florida State, but maybe you play it in the first half and say, let's see how both of these teams come out. Is Clemson motivated? And then maybe you could get an in-game type of play in that type of situation, something to keep an eye out on. Let me ask you about the one matchup, and I know you and I talked about Cignetti earlier. You said that if he goes into Happy Valley and smells blood in the water, right, just as a whole, that he would go to beat and pummel Penn State. It's the first time that you look, they've never won in Penn State dating back in the history of the series. Penn State is 25-2 all time against the Hoosiers. Both losses have come in Bloomington. Thoughts about what this means for Cignetti, obviously number 2 team in the country, but big picture, it's also an opportunity to stick the fork in Penn State and get a jump in recruiting, isn't it?
Well, I mean, first of all, Indiana is no longer from the henceforward the same Indiana they were all those years past. Kurt Cignetti has brought a different level of football to Indiana, and it's not just a lucky season. We kind of thought that might be the case towards the end of the season last year when they lost, to Oregon and Ohio State. But all of a sudden they come back this year, top running team, top passing team, top defensive team. They can do it all. And so I think what we're seeing now is not a team that annually loses to Penn State, but a team that's a whole different atmosphere at Indiana. Now the question is, will he win? Will he beat Penn State by 14.5 or wherever it is right now?
Right.
He's going. I know Kurt's going to want to beat them worse than Ohio State just beat them last week. He wants to be number 1. He don't want to be number 2. He wants to be number 1, and he will try to make a statement in this football game. And whatever he can do, he's going to score points, and I think he's good up to it. I'm gonna ride him because of that. It seems like every time I think he's going to score a lot of points, he goes out there and scores a ton of points. I just think that's part of his makeup. Is how many points can we score? Let's don't play backups all the way. Let's don't sit on the ball. We're going to keep the pedal to the metal and try to keep scoring throughout the game.
All right, I'm going to go out on a limb.
Okay.
You and I have disagreed this whole show. Very untypical.
Yep.
I think they win, okay? But something is telling me Penn State, it's big noon kickoff. They're coming off a disappointing road loss to Ohio State. And you think, they'll be down, right? But now here comes the number 2 ranked team in the country. So, all right, I know it's hard to get, and hard to get these kids up for back-to-back games. But, all right, guys, we lost to Ohio State, but we have an opportunity now to show out at home against a team that's never beaten us in Happy Valley. I'm going to ride that emotion and hope that Penn State with this staff don't put the football in the quarterback's hands and just allow Singleton and Katron Allen to run it 100 times in this game. I don't know if they get through the total, but I really like Penn State as one of my better picks this weekend. I'm going to take the 14.5 points. Answer me this. How hard is it for Cignetti, back-to-back road games, to get these kids up? He dominated Maryland, but now he's going to Happy Valley. The bullseye's on their back. The momentum, you think he'll have them up in that aspect?
Shoot, I think it'll be hard to keep them from being too revved up for the week. I think he's had to work all week not to have them play the game on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. I mean, we're talking about a team that's never had this kind of attention, this kind of success, and they're sitting there thinking they're now. Last year, they got to the playoffs and really were beaten quickly and badly. People said, well, it was just a temporary thing. So I think the momentum is there. I think it's not, can he get them up for another game? It's hopefully he didn't play the game this past Tuesday or past Wednesday at practice, because that's what happens to players that get pumped up. They wear themselves out in practice and play the game too early. You need that momentum, that enthusiasm, that at a game day attitude. You need to rise right at game time. And so I see that being more the case, because if you're not pumped up to be playing for Indiana right now, then you're not a football player.
Yeah, absolutely. How about the big game in the Big 12? You and I had discussed it earlier in the week. The atmosphere for Texas Tech and what Joey McGuire has done. The money's paid off, right? I mean, the NIL money is paid off. I mean, are they now the blueprint to getting back to just, superiority? Because they put a ton of money in the facilities.
Right.
They put a ton of money into NIL, and they just didn't do it with the football program. I keep going back. They got that girl, the pitcher from Stanford, that they gave her $1 million, and they went to the World Series in softball. So is this the blueprint now? I mean, forget the football game for a second. Is this the blueprint to be a competitive program in the current landscape?
No, without a doubt, it's a combination of getting the right coach in there that knows how to make the right decisions in regard to his staff, and then being totally committed to the NIL program and the portal, knowing that you don't win it with offensive people. You don't go out there and stack your offense and can't shut anybody down. They went out there and made sure they took care of the defensive side of the ball as well. And they have done a remarkable job. I think that's the key for everybody, because Texas Tech sits in a state with two other universities at the very least, Texas and Texas A&M, with much, much more money, resources, deep pocket, all those things. But they made it. It doesn't take a bunch of billionaires or millionaires. It just takes one or two. And, they got a few of them over there because they made a decision, and they're doing a great job with it. And so, it's funny. I've got Texas Tech winning this game, but BYU, they're undefeated. And I've got them against the spread, taking the points. I got them 10 points. I got them taking the spread. 10. They haven't lost a game. I just think and then Texas Tech got upset a couple of weeks ago. They get
Arizona State.
Arizona State. They got upset. But I'm not saying Texas Tech won't go all the way. I'm just saying I think BYU, they have that something, and they'll keep it within 10 points. And so I'm going to take the points with BYU. I've been doing that all day. I've been very big on taking the points and the underdog. Most of the time, I'm not sure they're going to win, but I feel good with the points.
All right, so I am going against you again, and this is not you and I have been in step most of the way.
Most of them, but this
is it. One of us will be right, one of us will be wrong.
That's
I really like Texas Tech. I will say this. When you look at the transition, what Joey McGuire has done with David Bradley and that front seven,
right,
for the Red Raiders, right? And you just look at this team, David Bailey, excuse me, I'm looking at something here. They have held opposing offenses under 130 yards on the ground across the board. That has been the best effort on this front seven. Was last week K-State. Coach, they pounded it for 126. That is the highest amount on the. Now, LJ Martin and that rushing attack for BYU are going to have to pass 126 yards in today's game. I mean, everybody's under 100. 53 to Arkansas Pine Bluff, 63 to Kent State, 8 Oregon State, Utah 101, Houston very physical 103, 47 to Kansas, 75 to Arizona State, 95 to Oak State. I mean, they just shut down the run against everybody. That is in the Big 12, which is known as a finesse conference. They're playing 2.4 yards per rush, one of the best defensive units in all of college football, holding opposing offenses, coach, 74 rushing yards per game. That's unbelievable in today's atmosphere.
Yeah, and they're scoring so many points, too. You got teams that can't afford to stick with too much of a slow running game because they're getting further and further behind if they don't score points quickly. Because, again, I think in the last 4 games, they've scored 162 points to 48 for their opponents. And so you can't afford to sit too long and get 3 or 4 yards a carry when the other team's getting 30 or 40 and a touchdown every series they go out there. And so there are a lot of other things offensively going on as well. All that being said, there's a lot to be said at this late stage of the season for BYU to be undefeated and finding a way to win the games that they do. You know, they had to put a whole new quarterback this year, and they went with a new quarterback, and they came out doing the same stuff.
Yeah, we will see exactly how that plays out. You're taking the points. I'm going to say this, though. You know, I'm a big backer of the uniforms.
Yeah.
Those road uniforms by BYU, blue helmet, white jersey, blue pant, the old Robbie Bosco days.
Oh, there you go.
Those are unbelievable. Now, I know Bosco wore the white helmet, but those blue pants I love them. The way it looks with the BYU white jerseys from a uniform standpoint, one of the best road uniforms that we've seen throughout the season. So keep an eye out for that. I'm always big about the uniforms as it plays out. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Just on paper, can Iowa hang with Oregon's offense? Do you believe Iowa can hang or get Oregon into this ugly game this weekend? Do you have, I mean, just knowing Ferenc and how he plays, do they have any shot to slow down? They're in Iowa City. They're catching 6.5. Mindset-wise, could he get them into an ugly game?
All right, we're gonna hear this one more time. I'm gonna take Iowa and the points.
You are?
Let me just tell you this. I've been doing a little bit of Iowa gets better as the season goes along. Iowa is 21-2 in the month of November in the last 23 November games. What's that, 5 years? They're 21-2. By the time they get late in the season, they are playing their best football. And they also have done very well and played well. Of course, beating Minnesota last week. What did they win last week? They won big. I was going to say, I don't know if it was Minnesota they played, but they just have been doing unbelievable games. So I'm going to go with Iowa because it's a November game. They're playing better, and I'm going to take the points with Iowa against Oregon.
You're right. They smoked Lindsey and PJ Fleck 41-3. That was their last game. They're winning of 3 straight. Now, I will say from an offensive perspective, they struggle with Penn State. That was under the lights a couple of weeks ago, 25-24. They beat a gutless Wisconsin team 37-zip. They put up 38 against Rutgers. They put up 47 against UMass. They lost a rivalry game to Iowa State, and they lost to Indiana, which they held Indiana to one of their lowest totals and covered that game because Fernando Mendoza took a safety at the end of the game to run out the clock.
I remember.
I don't want to do this to you. I really.
I'm taking it.
I think they get smoked.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think they're going to. They'll keep the ball. They'll keep the ball on offense enough. I don't think they'll get smoked. I'm obviously taking the unusual or the non-favorable position, but for some reason I just like Iowa this late in the season.
Would you
just
like
an old blue collar
on the road? Would you
What's
like
that?
Are you
No,
like?
I don't think so. I don't think it's quite the same going on the road, especially at Oregon, and having to go on the road to play Oregon at home means a lot. I think this whole November thing, colder weather, the entire atmosphere, the way Iowa says we're going to beat you down, not just by the third or fourth quarter, but by the third or fourth quarter of the season. And that's what Iowa's done. We'll see. It seems to be Iowa's MO year after year is to play hard-nosed football. We all get tired of Iowa not throwing the football. But come November, shoot, they're winning football games.
You're an offensive guy. You reverted back to your MAC days in Akron with the cold weather and going old school blue collar with Kirk Ferentz. I mean,
you got it.
All right. So let me just ask you this before we go. If Iowa gets the win, is this team going to make the playoff if they run the table? They're going to have to. I mean, they're not. I can't see Iowa with Gronowski. Quarterback coach, Iowa making the college football playoff. What is this, Freddie Russell?
No, they're not. They're not going to. They're already 6-2. They're not going to make the playoffs. Who do they finish up with? I haven't got their schedule.
I got it right here. You ready?
You give me who they finish up with.
Oregon, USC, Michigan State, and Nebraska. They could win all of those games.
They could. They've got 2 losses. If they won them all. But then they would. They still wouldn't know. I don't know. They might. I'm going to say you're going to have 2 undefeated teams.
Let's just say this: Ohio State, Indiana in the Big Ten championship. Iowa's a 10-2 team. Okay, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
That's if they win.
That's if they win. I'm going to give you this. Think about this for a second. Yeah. Iowa at 10-2, Oklahoma at 10-2, and either Virginia Tech or Georgia Tech at 10-2. If you had to make a decision with those 3 teams, Oklahoma, Iowa, Georgia Tech, or Virginia, they all are 10-2, not a conference champion. Which one would you take?
Let me look at one thing. I want to see who Oklahoma's. That means Oklahoma would have beaten Alabama, Missouri, LSU to finish. I'd take Oklahoma. If they could finish up 10-2, I'd take Oklahoma.
That's who I would. Too.
Body of work's too good.
Right.
Body of work's too good.
I think as long as they win out, Oklahoma could be an at-large team. I think they're definitely going to be there. They might even have an argument if they beat Bama, Coach, to be that 3-loss team resume-wise.
Yeah, I think if you're in the SEC and you've beaten the teams, if they beat Alabama with the way they've played, yes, I could see them very well being a 3-loss team. Because I think a 3-loss team has got to come out of the SEC, probably, maybe out of the Big Ten, but it's not going to come out of the ACC or the Big 12.
I agree. So that's why I still think when we look at the big picture and we see those big ticket odds on Oklahoma to win a national championship, 55-1 is appealing. So we'll see. We'll be back next week breaking down week number 12. Don't be shocked if there's upsets. We always talk about this in the month of November. This is the calm before the storm, baby, the final stretch run. We'll see exactly how it plays out when those college football playoff odds come. I will say out of all the games I sort of like Auburn more and more now. I like Missouri. You got me thinking. I like Missouri. I like Penn State a lot. I like a lot of dogs here, and I do lean to Alabama. They call me an LSU homer. I'm just not feeling it this week. Trust me, I would love to bet Alabama and LSU wins. I just don't see that playing out. But we'll be back next week breaking it all down for Coach Bowden. I'm Joe Lisi. Have a great weekend, everyone. Enjoy the games, and let's see how it all plays out.
All righty.